Hello there, this is me again with another quick tip. So we're looking at corporations this week. And corporations are interesting because they're usually these huge businesses, lots of employees, lots of products, lots of interaction with government and publics of all kinds. For some reason, public distrust exists heavily for corporations. We, as citizens, usually don't trust corporations because they're all looking out for themselves, right? They only look for profit. They only look for, if they're publicly held, they're only looking for getting the most return on their investment for their stockholders. And a lot of times they're perceived as having no care about quality, no care about the environment, no care about the community that they're in. And trust then in leaders of corporations are also low. I can remember, and this is something that's talked about later on in this chapter, but I can remember when I worked for General Electric here in Bloomington, General Electric's internal philosophy had changed a lot from just before the time I went to work for them in 1996. And before then, they were sort of viewed as jokingly called Generous Electric. And it was about profit, but it was also very much about being part of the community and that kind of thing. And they had a CEO change, and he was only concerned with profit, and he wanted the most profit humanly possible to an absurd degree. And I came to work for GE in Bloomington here in 96. They stopped really caring about being a good corporate citizen. You'll see that pop up in the book. Especially within the community that we had the largest side-by-side refrigerator manufacturing plant in the world here in Bloomington in 1996, put out 1.5 million refrigerators a year. I mean, it was astronomical. 4,000 people working there, 3 shifts a day. It was crazy the amount of work that went through here. And because of this new focus, GE stopped really caring about what their building looked like. They stopped painting the outside because that was viewed as excess, unnecessary expense. They would cut the grass, but that was about it. They didn't really take care of making bushes grow. And if bushes died, they'd yank them out and they wouldn't replace them. And it looked really dismal when you drove up to it. It was a horrible looking place. And the reason I bring it up is that facility closed in 2015, I believe it was. And it was empty for a number of years. And then Cook Medical here in Bloomington bought the facility, and they're converting it to do some different things because it's a huge facility. They're converting different parts of it to do different things. And one of the first things they did was to spruce up the landscaping and make it look nice again and make it look inviting and like someplace you'd want to come. And it immediately changed the community's perception of that facility, because it went from being this dreary, terrible looking thing to this beautiful thing with really nice landscaping and walking paths. And I mean, it's the stuff that's been put in there is really nice. And it changed the public's view of the facility. And of course, it's a different owner, but it gives Cook a much better view. So this is something that corporations need to be concerned with. And a lot of times they're viewed as not being concerned with. And if you go back through some of the massive tragedies that we've had, one of the biggest ones was in 2011 when the Deepwater Horizon drilling rig in the Gulf exploded, and we had oil leaking into the Gulf for extended period of time. And BP Oil was the major company involved in that. And they didn't really, you'll read about it in the book quite a bit, because they really did not handle it from a public relations standpoint very well, or from any other standpoint very well, honestly. In the book, though, there's a couple of examples that are used. And one of them on page 447 in one of those little highlight things, case books, it talks about a Walmart scandal. And this is an excellent opportunity to really look at things from a public relations standpoint, because when you have a scandal, when you get to crisis management, you're going to see how important public relations is and how to react well in those situations. Walmart did not handle this well at all. And their public relations department had told them they needed to do this, and they sort of were ignored. And as a result, it really, for a while, came back and bit them in the hiney. Now, it didn't shut down. I mean, obviously, Walmart's a huge corporation. They're all over the world. But the casebook article in the book does a nice job of analyzing it, but also I found a clip in YouTube about it, and I wanted to bring that to you too, so that you could get a sense of how important understanding the interaction between a corporation and all of its very publics can be. And so take a look at this.
Remember that Walmart bribery scandal from a few months ago, and everyone was worried about how that was going to hurt the stock? For a while, I even thought that
was not the one I wanted to do. This is the one I wanted to do.
Walmart stock down about 5% today. Reverberations again from the disclosure of a probe, a bribery probe in Mexico. To tell us about that one, Miguel Bustillo is here. Good morning, Miguel. How are you?
I'm okay. Okay, been a long weekend already.
Yeah, I'll bet, right? So bring us up to date on this Walmart probe. What are the details of it? What do we know right now?
Well, just to back up a little bit, what happened is that in December, Walmart disclosed in an SEC filing that it was looking into an alleged violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which is a bribery statute. It didn't say where the problem was, didn't say anything. Then over the weekend, the New York Times basically had a big, long investigative article, which appears to be informed by internal documents, which showed that, in fact, the article, this had been going on since 2005. They had heard it since then. And that forced Walmart to kind of be a little bit more forthcoming about the fact that this probe that it had disclosed was in Mexico, and that, it appeared to be a pretty serious matter.
Miguel, this is Steve Wisniewski. Obviously, the Walmart shares are being hit hard this morning, down about 5%. Walmart de Mexico, which is one of the company's most important international units, its shares are also down quite a bit, I think more than 10%. What was the responsibility that Walmart had to disclose the investigation? In 2005, when senior executives were first made aware of the apparent improprieties, were they under any obligation to let people know about the investigation? And then when they found out more internally about the investigation, were they under obligation to do so?
Well, as we noted in the article this morning, there is no obligation per se under the law, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, to self-disclose a problem. So they don't have to tell the government about a problem. However, the government does expect that if they learn of a problem like this, that a company like Walmart is going to take steps, or will have taken steps, to quote unquote remediate the problem. And I think one of the real issues for Walmart here is not only that they didn't self-disclose for over 5 years after learning of the problem, but that it doesn't appear that they did anything about it for 5 years. And from the legal experts that I spoke with, that's where Walmart is going to really face some risk here legally.
Miguel, do we have any idea what kind of advantage how widespread this was, and what kind of an advantage they gained from it?
Well, one of the, it's a very important question, and we don't know right now, but the allegations center around essentially zoning permits for new stores. And so you're talking about really the heart of the operation there in Mexico. They were opening, hundreds of stores during the period in question. And if those new store openings are going to be tainted by a bribery scandal, that could have a serious impact on the fines that are surface as a result of this. If the government basically determines that they gained a great competitive advantage through illegal activity. Some legal experts I spoke with even thought that the SEC could attempt to force Walmart to disgorge profits, depending on what ultimately comes out of this. So it's a pretty serious fundamental aspect of the business in Mexico.
Now, Miguel, some of the current executives, including the CEO, Mike Duke, had a role in the international operations of Walmart at the time. In fact, the current CEO was head of Walmart International when these allegations first surfaced.
That's right.
What do you suppose the implications could be for him?
Well, it really remains to be seen in the sense of, as this attorney told me yesterday, this is kind of the classic what did you know and when did you know it type of investigative situation. People will want to know what Mike Duke knew, when he knew it, and what he and Lee Scott, who was the CEO at the time, and other executives at Walmart did about it. Although they appear not to have been in any way involved in the bribery itself, it does appear that they heard about it based on the Times report, which the company hasn't refuted, and therefore I think that they may face some liability here, not perhaps criminal liability, but the SEC may be concerned, from what I understand, about whether they exercise financial controls essentially in dealing with this problem.
Just very quickly, are they being investigated by Mexican authorities as well?
We don't know that right now at all. All Walmart has said is that it's self-disclosed to U.S. and Mexican authorities, and we have no idea what Mexico is doing about this, if anything, at the moment.
All right, let's leave it there, Miguel. Thank you very much.
So what you see, potentially a huge problem. This could reach crisis level, right? From Walmart. It did at the time, but there are some interesting things said right there. For one thing, they had known about this for 5 years. Didn't do anything about it. Any good public relations individual is going to say, hey, this has the potential to really come up and be an issue. We need to address it early, and we need to get it before it blossoms into a gigantic thing. And so this is the kind of stuff that corporations deal with all the time. And you see lots of examples of it. This was one. I mentioned the BP oil spill in the Deepwater Horizon. General Motors has had a couple. They had one with the ignition switch on almost all of their cars had a problem, and apparently General Motors had known about it for about 10 years. So it's similar to this Walmart thing, and didn't disclose it, didn't address it, and actually it had some deaths result from it. And they only eventually disclosed it because they were being sued for a number of deaths that were, according to the suits filed, related to the switch. They also, of course, had some with seatbelts, and I don't remember what the seatbelt one was. And then you look at Toyota, which Toyota is viewed as one of the few corporations where a lot of these rules don't apply. They have a very high quality reputation. They have a very positive reputation in the industry, which is unusual. And there's a lot of trust built up in Toyota. And then the Takata airbag situation happens. And for the most part, it hit Toyota pretty hard at first. And then as time progressed, they found out it spread to a lot of the other auto manufacturers. But for a while, Toyota was really in this public distrust area because they had apparently, or Takata had apparently known about the issue and had not really addressed it. And it tarnished their reputation. And so these are the kinds of issues the PR in corporations deal with. Now, you just had that discussion not too long ago about departments within corporations versus standalone firms. This is one of those things where if you're in a department in a corporation and you're saying, hey, you should do this, and they don't, you don't really have much recourse. They can either take your advice or not. And if they choose not to, then you either need to, become a whistleblower or just say, okay, I've documented that I've tried to get you to understand this, and this was your response. A standalone can say, look, here's your situation. You need to act. If you choose not to act, we're not going to be doing any business with you anymore, because hurting your reputation will in turn hurt our reputation, and we can't have that. So there's a very different dynamic between working within a corporation and working for a standalone. Of course, I, for the most part, work standalone, which was nice because you had the ability to decide who you worked with, what you dealt with. Here's situations sometimes where things are going to bite whoever you're representing in the tail. And if they decide not to pursue it, you say, okay, but we're not going down with you, and you step out. Or you can be you can be a little bit more forceful because you don't have as much risk of losing your job. Yeah, you might lose that client, but you've got other clients. Within a department, it's a little trickier. And there's a lot of other differences as well, but this is the kind of issues a lot of times that corporations have to deal with, and it's mentioned in the book, so I wanted to put that up so that you at least had an opportunity to see what was happening at the time this was really going on, this thing with Walmart in Mexico, because that's a real thing and it's a good example in the book. So hopefully that helps. Talk to you later.